Our world is a world of sight and sound. It's all smooth waves and continuous motion. But our digital devices, our computers, our phones, they speak a completely different language. It's all ones and zeros. So the big question is, how do we translate our world into theirs? Well, that's the digital blueprint we're going to break down today.
Now, really, stop and think about it for a second. How does the sound of my voice, which is just a continuous analog wave of pressure moving through the air, get captured, turned into pure data, beamed across the internet, and then somehow perfectly recreated in your headphones? It feels a little bit like magic, doesn't it? But it's actually just a brilliant process of translation.
And this diagram here, this is the whole playbook. It's the journey. Over on the left, you've got the original analog signal. Let's say a voice. It goes through a whole bunch of steps to get encoded into a digital signal, and then on the other side, it gets decoded right back into something you can hear. This flow right here is our roadmap for the next few minutes.
All right, first step. Before we can do anything, we have to actually capture the signal. And this critical first step is called sampling.
The idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's super powerful. To capture a smooth, continuous wave, we basically take a series of snapshots at incredibly fast, perfectly regular intervals. Each of those little black dots you see is one measurement, a single sample. The best way to think about it is like a flip book, you know? If you snap the pictures fast enough and flip through them, you can recreate the original motion perfectly. So the crucial question is, how fast is fast enough? Well, that's where the golden rule of this whole process comes in. It's called the Nyquist rule. And it says, to accurately capture a signal, you have to sample it at least double its highest frequency. Not 1.5 times, not kind of close, at least double. For engineers, this is the absolute law of the land.
Which, of course, brings up the fun question. What happens if you get it wrong? What's the penalty for breaking this golden rule?
Well, this is where things get weird. You end up with a digital illusion. Just look at the bottom here. When the samples are taken too far apart, the computer tries to connect the dots, but it ends up seeing a completely different wave, that green dashed line. It's like a ghost in the machine, a fake signal that wasn't in the original sound at all. And this spooky effect is called aliasing.
And aliasing is not just some boring chart in a textbook. Oh no, you've definitely seen this before. Ever watch a video where a helicopter's blades look like they're standing still or even spinning backwards? Yep, that's aliasing. The camera's frame rate, its sampling, is too slow to capture the real motion. Or check out this incredible shot. The camera's shutter speed is so perfectly synced with the water's vibration that it looks like it's frozen in midair. That's a real-life, mind-bending example of aliasing.
Okay, so we've taken our snapshots, we have our samples, but how does a computer actually understand the value of each one? I mean, they're just dots. We have to assign a number to them, and this next step is called quantization.
The best way to think about quantization is to imagine using a ruler. The original smooth wave has an infinite number of possible values, right? But our digital ruler only has a certain number of lines on it. So for every sample we took, we have to find the closest line on that ruler and just round it. We're forcing the real-world value to snap to the nearest digital value that we have available.
And the number of lines on that digital ruler, that's what we call resolution. The resolution is determined by the number of bits. So more bits means more lines on our ruler, which gives us a much more precise and accurate measurement of the original signal.
Let's make this real. For example, think about old-school 8-bit audio. You know the classic sounds from a Nintendo Entertainment System? That system had a digital ruler with only 256 distinct levels to measure the volume of a sound. And that's what gives it that classic, kind of crunchy, charmingly simple sound.
Now let's compare that to 16-bit audio, which is what you get on a CD. Instead of just 256 levels, we now have a ruler with over 65,000 levels. That is an incredible jump in precision, and it's exactly why CD audio sounds so much richer and more detailed than an old video game. It's simple. More resolution means better quality.
But there's a catch. This whole process of rounding, of snapping the real world to a digital ruler, it's never perfect. There is always a tiny error. And this leads to something called quantization noise. And this slide shows the problem perfectly. The smooth line is the original, real-world signal. The blocky stair-step line is our digital version. That little gap between them, that's the rounding error. At the bottom, that jagged line is just all those tiny errors added together. In the real world, this shows up as a faint background hiss or static. That's quantization noise.
So to put it simply, quantization noise is really just a fancy name for the rounding error that happens every single time the real world gets converted into data. It's the unavoidable price we pay for making that translation.
So if this error is unavoidable, how do we get the crystal clear digital music and movies that we all love? Well, that's where engineers get really clever. They have a whole toolkit of strategies to fight back against noise and aliasing.
Here are the 3 big pro tips. First, increase the resolution. Just use more bits. Use a 24-bit ruler instead of a 16-bit one, and you'll get a more precise measurement. Second, oversample. This means sampling way faster than the Nyquist rule says you have to, which helps average out all that noise. And third, you use filters to just get rid of unwanted frequencies before the signal ever even gets converted.
So, after all this talk about sampling and aliasing and quantization, why does any of it actually matter to you? Well, because this completely invisible process is running nearly every single piece of technology in your life. And I'm not just talking about your Spotify playlist. Think about a self-driving car. Its sensors are doing this constantly to build a digital map of the world. Any error, any aliasing could be, well, catastrophic. Or think about a hospital ECG machine digitizing a heartbeat. Accuracy is literally a matter of life and death. From giant robots on a factory floor to the video you're streaming right this second, this fundamental process of turning analog into digital is the bedrock of our entire modern world.
Ultimately, what we've done is build a system for translating reality itself into the language of computers. It's how we capture sound, images, and countless other physical things. And this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. As this technology gets better, and faster, and more powerful, what parts of our world will be digitized next?